First route is self-publishing, the second route is independent publishing, and the third route is traditional publishing.
Tell us a little bit more then about the process of writing a book. Like for someone who might want to do that, if they're listening because they're so inspired by you, but they want to know how you've been able to do it. What is the process of kind of getting a book deal from the moment that email lands to it being out in the world and people reading it?
Yeah. Okay. There's 3 routes you can take. The first route is self-publishing, the second route is independent publishing, and the third route is traditional publishing. I've done just about all 3. And so my first book was independent publishing, but it was so independent that I had such a large part that I felt like self as well, because I was so involved in it. Obviously, I didn't crunch any of the numbers or any of the logistics. That was, God forbid, not my area. I'm on the stage. I can't do that. But I was really involved heavily in the process of creating it and forming it and that kind of thing, and making the cover. God, I was so anal about the cover. I made them do the cover about 20 times, and I was like, no, that's slightly too much to the left. But so independent publishing is when a small press is going to publish your work. And the small press, you're not going to get this massive advance as you would with traditional publishing. You might just split a certain revenue or something, but it's smaller. You might get into a few local bookstores, but you're probably not going to get the distribution to go in Waterstones and that kind of thing. I'm so grateful. That was my first experience and introduction into publishing, because it felt very hands-on and it was a lot to learn. I learned a lot about the industry doing that, because, with them, we're trying to get distributors and that kind of thing. But in saying that, I never want to do that again. And I'm ready to go to traditional publishing now. Whilst it was fun and I can look back at it fondly, God, it was so awful at times, because it's just so chaotic and you're trying to do everything and work it all out. But
it's really hard. And I think maybe that's something in itself to speak about, is that often in the early days of being a creative, you are often every single cog in the wheel to get that out. You are the producer, you are the graphic designer, you are the creative, you are also the salesperson, you are also the marketeer. Like sometimes we don't realize like how many skills you have to learn to produce something in the very beginning. And then maybe you get to a point where you are supported by, like, for example, a traditional publishers who will then provide the PR.
That's exactly the route
all of
that
those
I've
kind of
taken.
things. Yeah,
for sure.
But I think that's difficult sometimes for a lot of young people who are trying to make it into the industry, because you do feel that in order to make it, you kind of have to be a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah, it is really daunting. It is obviously so daunting. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no idea, because also we didn't know we'd be selling thousands and thousands of copies in the first couple of weeks. So we didn't, we thought we were just going to do it, and and if it bummed, that's fine. That's no problem. Like, we've created this thing, and I can say that we've tried to create this thing. We didn't have any expectations whatsoever, and I think that's the most important thing.
100%.
As you learn from your failures just as much as you do your successes. And God, I've written some awful articles that were rejected, and I can look back on those now and recognize that there was a reason I got rejected. But that was being everything. Also, because I'd just come into this online following, I didn't know how to handle it, and so I had to do my own publicity for the books as well. And so I went from sharing other books that I was learning about in university to being, guys, I also wrote this book, we should all get this book. And then it worked. What do you do when you're suddenly handed all this power? It's terrifying. I'm grateful that I could share the process with the girls, because the 2 publishers my age, we're all just young girls. One's in LA, one was in Melbourne, I was in London. So from 3 corners of the world, we're trying to create this thing together. And it was really harmonious as much as it was terrifying. But you have to accept that it's going to be terrifying and find the thrill in that. But that's why I've gone traditional now, because I don't want the thrill anymore. I'm tired.
And what's your process now? The process now going through with the book?
Yeah, so the process with traditional publishing, it's a lot easier but a lot harder, because it's a lot more exclusive. I mean, independent's exclusive, but if it's self-publishing, anyone can do that. If someone's interested in learning how to do self-publishing or independent publishing, if you literally just Google like independent publishers near me or like presses near me, indie presses, and submit, same process, exact same process. If you want to self-publish, Google it. It's so easy. You can go, like, if you want to do it via Amazon, God forbid, the Bezos site, you can do it so simply.
Yeah.
With traditional publishing, though, it seems more daunting, but it's the same process, because you have to have the manuscript first and foremost. A lot of people don't actually write the book before they start reaching out to agents, which I find so funny. What are you selling?
Yeah.
So you have to write the manuscript.
Would you recommend people write something before they try and put it into?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't recommend that. You have to do that.
Because I think a lot of people like have someone come to them and go, would you like to write a book about X, Y, Z? And then they sign the deal, and then they go, I'm going to go away and write it. How often is that the case? And how often is it the case that people write the book and go, will you publish this?
I think it'd be less than 1% that people are contacted to write certain books.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's unless you're like an expert in a field or have a massive presence or an online following or some kind of celebrity with an interesting life to write a memoir about, no one's going to message you on Instagram and say, hey, could you write this book about this for me?
Honestly, I've heard quite a few people say that, though. Like, maybe it's just because of the circle that I'm in.
Oh, no,
and, like,
same. I know people as well.
and I'm like, where did this magical person come from? Like, even the person who was reading like your blog, I know it was an independent publisher, not a traditional, but like, I'm also like, where did these people come from to give you that, to go for like a punt on that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I mean?
no, it's kind of like they magically appear and all your dreams come true, like a genie in a bottle.
Yeah. I remember reading, I think it's Roxy Nafusi's book, which is like Manifest, and she literally talks about the book deal that just magically came into like her inbox, and I was like, wow, like does that happen for people?
Like, I mean, my first book, because she appeared in my Instagram DMs one day and said, hey, do you want to have this experiment? And I was like, oh, did I manifest this? Maybe?
Yeah.
But it's also because I was working for like 4 years of posting shit on a blog.
Yeah.
Swear word, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Am I,
all right.
Am I censored?
It's over 20 somethings on this podcast, so technically no children should be listening, so you're fine to swear.
I don't think children are too interested in how to publish a book. Actually, they might be. With traditional publishing, the process is the exact same. Write the book, Google literary agents, submit to literary agents, and pray. Hope the one gets back to you, and then it's in their hands, and the rest is simple.
And since the book has been published, obviously you mentioned going on tour, like how has that process been as a published author now? Like is the world different because you have that, obviously, like essentially the dreams that you had for yourself have been realized?
Yeah, the world is very different. I mean, I feel more myself than I ever have because, you know, like when you have these things that you've always been wanting and chasing, when you finally step into that, you know, it's like, you know, it's very aligned. I feel very aligned, and I felt very myself and aligned ever since this first book was published. And I feel all of the time, every single moment since then, I have felt I am exactly where I'm meant to be. And it's you can't even compare that feeling to anything else. It's so wonderful.